All right, well, this is Squire coming to you guys again this week. Tonight, I've got a special guest on with me, but he's going to be with us in spirit because we recorded last night. His name is Sithos, and he's another streamer. So yeah, make sure to check out his stuff and also go to his channel. You'll find all the links for that down below if you're looking at this on YouTube. Then we're going to talk about the new 2 Turns Ahead website, and we're going to fix a deck by Zygon91. He submitted a deck to the Reddit, and he was complaining about aggro and the current state of things in the meta, and like how it is that we needed more fixing with our shards to be able to play like really low curve decks. So we will get to that, but first let's queue up this interview. So this is going to take a quick second here, and we will flip over. Alright, well, this is Squire coming to you guys again. Tonight, we've got Sithos on. He had to come a night early because he's got some things to do, you know, hot Friday night for this guy. Oh, yeah. But tonight, we're going to be talking about some of the new community manager. I think we mentioned it last week, but I just want to hit on it one more time. The VIP program update, some CZE versus Wizards of the Coast, that there was a lawyer or something that posted on his website. We saw that come through Reddit. And I also saw it blow up a little bit on Twitter. I might have had something to do with that. And the HexTCGPro summary brought to you by Wurtil. But first, let's talk to Sithos. Sithos? Sithos.
It's just Sithos.
It's just Sithos. First of all, just talk to me about what kind of TCG background you have. Like, where are you coming from?
Okay, so I'm actually probably relatively low on the spectrum of trading card games. My history with trading card games is that, of course, in grade school, I was at the age where Pokemon was the biggest thing ever, and Pokemon was collecting. And then I transitioned to middle school, and it kind of became Pokemon wasn't quite as serious anymore. Pokemon wasn't cool.
It's a gateway drug.
Yes, it was the gateway drug that led to Yu-Gi-Oh! And Yu-Gi-Oh! In middle school, for me, I was obsessed. That was when I first learned how to actually play trading card games. I developed strategies. I could pinpoint cards that people weren't bothering with that actually had really good application. Right. Like, there was a card called Cold Wave, and it was if you played at the very beginning of your turn, you and your opponent cannot play basically any other cards until the start of your next turn. And nobody was playing it. And that blew my mind, because if you had a good board presence, you could say, you don't get to do anything, and I get to swing at you for another. I mean, it was just bonkers.
For infinity, yeah.
Yeah, and I actually looked that up recently, and it turned out that that card down the line either was banned or limited. You could only run 1 or 2 or none at all.
Right.
So I did that in middle school, and then I transitioned to high school, and for some reason I dropped Yu-Gi-Oh!, but I never picked up Magic. And I think that maybe it was just the high school I went to, there wasn't really a crowd for it, whatever it may have been. But I think had there been a crowd that I noticed, I probably would have checked it out, and I would have been addicted straight from then to now. But I actually didn't play at all. That's when I dropped trading card games. And then I picked up with Hex, which I'm sure is what we'll touch on here in a second.
Right, yeah. So yeah, talk to me about that. Like, did you go Kickstarter, or like you went Slackerbacker, or you just now found it, or how'd you hop on the train there?
So basically, and I don't recall exactly what first pointed me that direction. I have Kickstarted a few other things here and there, but I believe it was, as most people said, probably the Penny Arcade article.
Oh, yeah,
and I know that whatever landed me on that page, and I listened to Colin earlier, that's one of the people I listened to, it was within, like, sentences. Within sentences, I was sold. And then it was the more I watched, the more I read, the more details that I soaked up, I was just, like, my mind, I was excited. I was very excited, and it takes a lot to get me that excited. So, I mean, I was really excited, and I looked at the different tier levels, and I think Cryptozoic were evil geniuses with the spacing that they put on those tiers, because originally I looked at it and I said, I'm sold, I'm going $35 tier, which is like nothing. And then I started actually looking at the rewards that came with each package.
110, oh, come on, 110.
And basically what happened was I bumped
free
all
drafts
the
for
way
life,
down.
250.
I kick myself every day. So I landed at the $120 tier because the early birds were sold out.
Right.
It was all I could afford at the time. If I probably could have scraped together the 250 for pro, but it was really stretching my funds and kind of like
those went so fast too.
Yeah, and they went really fast. That is another point. By the time that I decided that I would go for it, it was like during those last few days when everyone was trying to snipe the spots as people were dropping them, and I wasn't willing to run a bot to try to get one of these spots. So yes, I was $120 tier.
A lot of people had 2 of those, 2 or 3.
Oh yeah, the people who got like $1,000 and then a couple of the 500s and then a 250. You're like, really, you people? Like, I wish I had your disposable income. Come on. But I do kick myself every day for not getting that pro tier.
So you have to tell me, what are you looking forward to more? Are you looking forward to the PvP or the PvE?
I'm looking forward to just Hex in general. I think right now I'm enjoying the PvP because it's what we have.
Sure.
I'm very excited about the PvE, but I've kind of mentally been telling myself not to be too excited because we don't have a solid time frame on it yet.
Sure, yeah.
I know that when it does come along, it's going to be amazing because all the details they've leaked, all the information they've given out, saying that there's, 40 or 50 dungeons, and they've kind of given the general details on a few, like, it sounds amazing, and I'm sure people's minds are going to be blown. People are going to flock to the game in droves, especially with the free-to-play element.
I think that's going to be a big draw for especially, like, female players, the PvE.
Yep. I made that note, and I when I said that at first, I'm like, I don't know if this is going to sound sexist, but I have a feeling that when PvE is in the game, that is going to draw in all kinds of droves of females.
Oh, yeah.
And it will also be just a gateway drug in general for new people into the TCG genre, which will be awesome.
Especially if they can maybe work in even like some of that like aesthetic stuff. Like maybe if you had like a tiny, like you have a castle in the game. Like maybe if you could add like little aesthetics to it, but you have to win them by doing PvE content. I mean,
oh yeah.
Like that is definitely in that specific audience a lot. You'll see that.
Oh, definitely.
The aesthetic stuff. So, yeah, I mean, going back to my high school days, I played a lot of Magic, and I think I've talked about it before where I took my brother's Pokemon deck and I was smacking down kids playing Pokemon with the Charizards. Sure. I never really got into the Yu-Gi-Oh, although I do know that that's very combo heavy. And then was also had like some of the worst distribution problems of any card game out there. But yeah, it's good to have somebody that's on the show with a Yu-Gi-Oh background, so I can kind of get that feel for things. You activated my trap card and all that stuff.
Yep, it was. Think of it as playing very blue heavy. It was almost like all you were playing was.
It's like I think I know what you have.
Yeah.
I mean, whenever you have a trap card, it's like, well, what could this be? Like, that's how it is kind of when you're playing Hearthstone right now, when you play against anyone that's playing like a trap-heavy deck where they're playing a lot of what do they call those? Hiddens? Hidden cards? Yeah, I mean, it's always like, well, I'm playing against this class, so it could be one of 4 hidden cards.
Right.
Like for the mage. But, typically it's only 2.
Right.
So it gives you some ability to play around it when it's that way. So I think we'll move on to the community manager news. So let's go and flip over to the show thing. And of course, you can't see this because it's on the other screen, but you'll see it tomorrow and in syndication when it's on YouTube.
Sweet, I'm excited.
I know. So I think we talked about the community manager last week, but if not, I just want to say welcome, new Hex community manager. You are always welcome on the show. Not saying that you should come on the show, but you should come on the show. But welcome, and I hope that everyone gives you warm greetings, and I'm sure you're ready to roll up your sleeves and get out there and do some work. Let's see, his name it's at the bottom here. He's
Sean Silverman.
Sean Silverman. Yeah, Sean Silverman is his name. So, and I believe he has a pedigree at Blizzard Entertainment. So, I mean, definitely more good people that we're getting on board on the Hex team. So, anything else to add to that, Sithos? Anything you want to...
I'm very glad that we finally do have a community manager because I know that the community in general has been crying out for that for months. We want someone we can interact with. We want someone face to face. Of course, we have people in the community who aren't community managers that we see on a regular basis. Like Colin is awesome. Colin the Exalted, he's a great guy, and he's made guest appearances on streams, which is great. And I have talked straight to him. We had a
he's very personable.
Yes,
like when he's not
awesome.
being swamped. Like that's the thing.
But I think we need someone who's officially that role to interface with the community. And I'm sure that as this guy gets integrated, he's just going to fall in love with the Hex community, because as it stands, this is one of the best communities I've ever seen for any video game.
They're so small right now. Yeah, that's what I worry about. But yeah,
sure,
it's good right now. It's definitely really good right now. Very few trolls.
Well, you look at chat during a free tournament day, and that's when you start to get your hint of doubt.
Well, I mean, but yeah, that's people coming on to get free stuff, so they probably have not necessarily their heart in it anyways. They don't have, to use a Yu-Gi-Oh term, the heart of the cards.
Oh jeez.
We're gonna use Yu-Gi-Oh stuff all night now.
Oh no.
It's gonna have to happen all night.
Oh, that was middle school.
You're gonna pay for the rest of your life for that too. You know that.
Great.
Yeah. So with that, the VIP program update, I think we touched on this last week, but basically you're going to be able to pay for up to 12 months of VIP program and still get the subscription service and get your packs per week. But again, it was going to break the economy too much for them to keep it for too long. So I think what they're doing by doing this is they're making sure that the people that aren't going to abuse it or abuse it too much are going to do it now. And whereas, like, if they had opened it up to the whole community and we were in open beta, that might have been more of a problem. And of course, the longer it goes, the more of a problem it would be, because then they'd just be saying to the community, the packs cost $2, but you might as well get them for $1, you know, and that would mean that on the auction house they would be less than $1, and they just wouldn't make enough profit to be able to feed their kids. And I want Corey to be able to feed his kid. So anything else to add to that, Sithos?
Yeah, definitely. I agree with their decision, and the reason being is that if something can be exploited, it will be exploited. Whether it's a mechanic or a way to grind gold, whatever it might be, if an exploit is found, it will be abused. And their logic is sound. If you had open beta where you can sign up for accounts freely and then just buy VIP, why ever buy a pack at full price?
Right. So you can just trade to yourself.
Correct.
Too. Yeah.
So I definitely agree with their decision. The interesting thing I thought about today of note was that a lot of us speculated that with them closing being able to VIP, that meant that open beta was very imminent. Some of us thought that, you know, I think it ended the 8th. That was that maybe roughly, but either way, a lot of us predicted that open beta would be as soon as the next day, within a week, within 2 weeks. And the interesting to note with this is that because they have said we're going to give you a 1 week window to make this year purchase,
they probably pushed it back. Yeah,
that's gonna push back open beta. I don't know if that was their intention. I'm sure it wasn't, but they have to patch that in.
Thanks, Obama.
And then they have to wait a week, and then they have to wait for that deal to expire before they can go open beta, because that's the whole point of this. Right. So I mean, worst case scenario, it pushed it back a whole week. I think we've all been waiting long enough for certain things that we're not going to cry over one more week for open beta. But I just thought it was interesting that will have a small impact on the people who are waiting.
There's been such a big influx of people moving into the beta client right now as it is that I've had a lot of people tell me that they're selling commons on the auction house, and I don't have that kind of time. Like, I posted a bunch of stuff one day, and you have to keep up with it, you know, and I have money, so I don't really the time is not worth it to me to get a couple pennies here and there, but you know, and plus it's more stuff for me to give away to you guys, so I figured you want that, you know, you want me to give you cards, you don't want me to sell them. So
I think selling commons is a little silly. I get that you could sell them for gold or whatever it may be because you want to roll chess, but personally, I think the majority of my commons are just going to be straight up given to people that I know.
Well, yeah, as a streamer, sure.
Oh, sure. Or I mean, just people that I either know or people on the stream who go, hey, I'm brand new to the game, I've got my starter deck, I'm already losing interest because I don't even care for that starter deck. You know, here's enough commons and uncommons to build maybe 2 other decks, and that way it'll kind of spark that interest to stay around.
Right. along those lines, before we press on to the one more thing on this article, you mentioned starter decks, and I just want to say to people, I recommend getting the Orc starter deck because it comes with 2 really good cards. It comes with Tatalka, the High Cleric, who is a really good finisher even if you're aggro, but she's also a really good control card. But especially it comes with Gore Feast of Kog'Tepetl, which is the one that basically gives you another attack phase and everybody gets Rage 1. That's a finisher that's we've seen used in a lot of at least tier 2, probably tier 1-ish decks, maybe 2.5 decks, I guess, whatever. I guess it would be 1.5. We go the other way, but so that's a really good one. And right after that, I personally like the Dwarf deck, but only because you get Drew's Walker in there, and that's a great card to ramp into or use for other various things. It hasn't seen a lot of competitive play, but you never know, it could. After that, probably the humans is what a lot of people are saying, and of course the Shinhare is kind of bringing up the rear there.
Yeah. So. That's pretty much the exact order I would put them in. I would personally, I always say Orc first. I actually like humans as second.
A lot of people said humans.
Dwarves is third, and then Shinhare is fourth. The thing to note about that, though, is that it depends what you're going for. If you're going just for fun and you want to have a deck that you enjoy playing, I actually think the Dwarves might be the funnest deck. Because you have lots of things you can do. You have lots of mechanics you're going to be learning.
Yeah.
Shinhare is
inspiration engine in there, right?
I believe so.
I think so.
Or Ingenuity engine.
Ingenuity engine.
I think you get one
which
Ingenuity.
turns into inspiration, or it's whatever it is. It turns into inspiration engine. The plans, whatever it is.
Right. But I think that's the funnest deck. I think the bunnies deck. The only reason it's dead last is because it loses the most.
Yeah.
It has you're vulnerable to air, you're vulnerable to evasion, you're just vulnerable to so many things that you really would have to purchase more cards to get it up to snuff.
Yeah, it just doesn't pound hard enough in the beginning. Yeah.
Right.
So one other thing with the update that they have, there's a bunch of tournaments going on, and they have them scheduled Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and they're starting on, it looks like September 26th, 27th, and 28th, so make sure to get out there and do those, because you get alternate art Zintos Inquisitors and Menacing Grolks, and this is some beautiful alternate art here. I don't know, you probably have the website up in front of you, but I really like the alternate art on these. I would love to have at least one of each of these, so I'm going to be out there trying to compete, and all you need is 2 wins, and you get 1 of each. And they're free. The tournaments are free, so get out there, make sure you're testing those 128s. I think that they've stopped trying to do too much of the just stress testing by calling it a tournament, which we're just never going to fire, and just do the 128s to do some more stress testing. So you pretty excited about these cards?
Yeah. I'm excited not only about the cards, but the concept. For a while now, we've known about the VIP tournaments, and hopefully they find some way to carry this on even when VIP doesn't exist. But I like the idea of a monthly tournament where you can get exclusive.
I lied. They're 500.
No.
Yeah. Still well worth it, because you only need 2 wins. And
it is Swiss.
Yeah, and for 0 wins, you get a pack back. So, I mean, they may even up that. You never know.
Yeah, well, 0 wins is 1 pack. 1 win is 2 packs.
Yeah.
So if you can manage to pull off winning just 1 out of 4 Swiss
you're
games,
coming out of pocket $1.
Right. Which is not the end of the world, and you're getting some gold, and The
other thing I love about this game is there's really 0 chance of being price gouged on the price point of packs. I love that too. There's no chance of that happening because there's no brick and mortar store. I love my brick and mortar stores, and I understand that the certain business practices they have to follow to stay alive.
Oh, sure.
At the same time, I just like that I can go into something and plan for it properly. So moving on to the Cryptozoic response to this, basically Paul Lesko talks about how it is that the Cryptozoic response kind of goes a step further when it's talking to Hasbro Incorporated. Like, they didn't just say all your stuff is vague. They said your stuff is vague, and you can't hold on to a monopoly forever. You have to let other card games breathe a little bit.
Yep.
And the funny thing is that like I thought that he was actually, I thought that at the beginning of reading this, I was like, oh, he's going to say that that was a little bit too much, but he didn't even say that at all. Like he was like, you know, that was a bold statement and a bold move, and I applaud it. That's basically what he said in this article. So it's a great article. Make sure you guys get out there and read it. It's Paul Lasco. I posted it on my Twitter. I buddied him. He buddied me back. This guy's a lawyer. He has a lot more education than I do. So I'm pretty stoked about it. Anything you want to talk to about that? I mean, he didn't really add too much more than we already knew that we had talked about in previous episodes.
I agree with the fact, I liked that the response is very bold. It's not like, he's stated that normally when someone goes to sue you, your response is usually something like deny this, deny that, deny that. And that's just a standard response because, you know, it's just what you do. And instead of doing that, Cryptozoic is saying basically you guys are being bullies.
Right.
I think the quote at the top of the article, which is a whole 2 sentences, is fearing competition in the trading card game industry and frantic about the loss of its monopoly position due to the expiration of its patent 2 months ago, Wizard seeks to eliminate Hex Shards of Fate through litigation rather than fair marketplace competition. So they're basically saying they're trying to shut us down because they know that what we have going is a good thing.
Right.
And
like,
I think...
Like, this is a fair fight if we were to just try to sell our products. We aren't we aren't trying to completely, like, rip off them. It's like, oh, Ford has a car and Chrysler has a car. They're both cars. They're both going to do certain things that cars do, like have radios and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but Ford's going to beat them. Well, not really, but they will try to beat them in the marketplace. They're not going to try to go to a court and be like, hey, we have a car.
Exactly. Well, the example that I think of when I think of, and it's not the exact same circumstance, but if you think about Dota versus League of Legends, Dota existed way back in Warcraft 3 as a mod. It might have even existed before then, but that was kind of the origin of the MOBA genre. I don't know if there was something like it before that, but I know that for most people, Dota was the original.
Right.
And so they did their thing, and then they kind of went under the radar. And then League of Legends came along, took that same general concept, which you could make the same.
Creators of Dota.
It's got, yeah, exactly. So it's similar enough. It's got there's 3 lanes. There's champions with abilities. There's minions that go towards the middle, and you fight at towers. I feel like there's the same general, similarities or level of similarity between that and League versus Hex and Magic. But Dota didn't come out and say, no, we claim the MOBA genre. You're too similar and we don't like you, go away. And I think because they didn't do that, League of Legends got huge, and then when Dota 2 came back into the scene, they got huge.
Right, exactly.
They saw that it wasn't them or us, it was, we have an awesome genre here and people are going to flock to both.
Yeah, and something I've always said, and something I portray on my show especially, is like I'm not really out there to try to beat everybody else that's going to be like a HexTCG contributor by competing with them and downing them and trying to like for instance, like I have you on my show specifically because I want to bring you up, because I want you to get better, because that makes me better, because you're going to reach an audience I'm not going to reach, I'm going to reach an audience you're not going to reach, and I think that's just a win-win in business terms.
Oh, definitely.
So I don't really agree with this. I think that it's important for Magic to protect their copyrights on one side of things, but at the same time, I think that we need to make sure that we set a good precedent for card games, so that way we can strike forward and have more innovation in the card game genre in general.
Oh, definitely.
So, moving on to the HexTCGPro tournament analysis by Wurtil, and I'm trying to remember I think he won the tournament, if I remember right.
It was either him or another guy, but he was definitely in the top 2.
But basically, he goes through a ton of numbers in this article, so if you just kind of want to play-by-play, this is a good article for you. You can see the breakdown on like how many different deck types were represented, what happened in each one of the different pods. Like, he also points out that there was like a new deck that emerged from, that came from, what's his name's team? From Zubrin's team. They brought out a Blood Wild, like kind of like a control deck. But yeah, that emerged. They had like 5 people playing it, and one of them didn't make the top 16. It's because they felt like it had a really good game against Blood Diamond Control. But we just didn't. Blood Diamond Control, as you can see, didn't have the market share that it's had in other tournaments. I mean, if you look at this, most of the time we saw a lot of Mono Sapphire, which is what I personally played. Blood Diamond Control, okay, is 21% of the field, so it was pretty big because it is a lot of the money cards. So I guess that is something that some people look to. But there's a lot of really deep information in here. We also saw some other outliers on here, like Mono Wild Aggro. This ran 18 resources. I actually played against it, and that was actually a pretty rough deck for me to deal with. Trying to see what else was kind of interesting. There's a mill deck in here, I guess. I haven't even really looked at that. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a lot to pour through. I just gave you this article. I mean, do you have anything else to add to this?
I did catch a bit of it. I caught a few matches here and there. I kind of came in at the tail end, and I think I probably watched the final 4. And I did find it interesting. But I think what this happens with the meta, because you kind of touched on the fact that, you know, Blood Diamond Control, you know, they brought in a certain deck because they thought it might do well against, and that's what happens. There's a meta's established, and then people go, well, what can beat those? Yeah. And so there's kind of this cycle where you see one thing dominates, and then something else comes in and wipes it out because it's tailored to counter that. Right. So,
but that's not good enough. You know, like, it has to not only be good against that deck, it has to be good against the field as well.
Oh, sure.
So, I mean, that's one thing to point out, because your deck might beat, like, for instance, I had a Gambit deck that pretty much beat Blood Diamond Control, like, every time. Because Blood Diamond Control is just not fast enough, and it can't deal with multiple targets if it doesn't sweep. And, you know, when I play 7 20-20s, and I say go to my opponent, and they can't deal with that, then it's over. The game's over. The problem is, building up to that point is just too slow against other decks in the format.
Yep.
So, especially like Gore Storm, which I way underestimated the field being in the last tournament, in the last HexTCGPro tournament before this finals. So there's definitely a give and take, like you were saying.
Oh, sure.
I don't know if there's very much else to. I mean, there's so many numbers on here. It's crazy. He did so much work. You know, make sure to check out this article and you know, give him some props. Some people made some posts on it. Like, people really enjoyed this article, so make sure to get out there and check that out. Why don't you, Sithos, just talk to me about exactly where your stuff is, so that way people can find you on the internets.
Sure. Well, the nifty thing is that my username is the same thing everywhere. So if you want to talk to me on Steam, Sithos. If you want to see my stream, Twitch TV/Sithos. If you want to see me in game, add me as a friend, maybe play against me for whatever reason. I'm the kind of person that if you just want to play Pauper style or starter decks or whatever it may be, just so you can kind of get a feel for your own thing, I'm totally down for that. If you want to try some crazy deck idea and you want to specifically play against, you know, say you want to play against Blood Diamond, just see how you can pair up against that. Shoot me a message in game. I'm more than willing to do something like that for you. But it is Sithos everywhere. So in-game Hex Sithos, Steam Sithos, stream Sithos.
Just go watch Sithos. All right.
Exactly. And I only stream about twice a week on average. If I do stream again, it might be this Saturday. Usually it's Monday and Saturday. So that's the most likely time you can catch me. And I do hang out in other people's streams, so you'll also catch me in chat occasionally.
And I encourage most people to do that as well, like their streamers. You know, you go and hang out. You know, people really do appreciate when you stop by. So, you said you had a YouTube and a Twitter as well, or not so much?
I have not really delved into the world of YouTube or Twitter yet. I'm one of those people where I have the interest, I have the passion, I have all the excitement, but I don't have the production value. So that is something I'm working on.
You'd be surprised.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So for everyone out there that might be thinking about like doing some streaming and stuff, a lot of people will say do YouTube or do Twitter, but don't do both. Or I've heard that before. It's not too bad. Like, what you can do actually with if you've got your streaming stuff set up, you can actually take it and port it straight out to YouTube, and they do link up, even though it is that YouTube/Google didn't buy out Twitch TV. So if you have that stuff on Twitch, you can just pipe it out, and it'll throw it all up there for you. You don't have to actually edit it if you don't want to. So you can do little small snippets of highlights, and that's a good way to do things as well.
Sure.
It's always nice to be able to hit one button and have it just propagate to multiple social media things. So anytime there's interconnectivity, I use that, believe me. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it for tonight. So thanks for coming on, Sithos. Hope that hot date tomorrow goes well.
Thanks for having me.
So until next time, this is Aaron Squire signing off, saying God bless you and your families, and try not to rage too much out there. And we're back. Alright, so we are going live here. I just need to go and flip some stuff around, and we will be live to do this deck doctor. Not too much else to really talk about today. Let's see, I don't think that there's anything on the HexTCG website. I'm going to refresh it just one more time, because they like to spring stuff on me, like, yeah, so there is an update here. Says Stay Frosty. I haven't read it yet, so we're going to go and flip over to that. So I think I'll just kind of glaze over this. Looks like it's talking about, well, this is a video. This looks pretty neat, so I guess we can watch this video, and then I guess we'll just try to look at it. It looks like an alternate art for Master Theory Crafter. That looks pretty neat. Yeah, I really like that. I really like things that look very mechanical like that. But I guess let's watch this video real quick. Let's see if we can get that going on here. Let's see what this is. What is this? Oh wow. I think I might have to stay frosty. I'm getting kind of cold right now, guys. I think my nipples are getting a little hard. Maybe we're just looking around at the landscape, I think. There's not going to be anything else. Those people are. Yeah, the lore in the game is really excellent. This might be our lead up into our first PvE. It's going to be the arena. That might be what this is, like a frost arena. Ah! Alright, well, that's where we go for our HexTCG news, of course. Well, that looks pretty exciting. Really, I haven't read through this, so I'm not going to go. Make sure you go out there and read it. I'll probably touch on it. Talking about VIP tournaments, last update, the Gore alternate art, arena, frost ring. Yeah, so this is talking about the arena. This is going to be that PvE arena, I guess. This is talking about this General Hogarth. I guess this is the boss in the PvE arena that you'll play against, and then it looks like completed Shards of Fate tier promos. Here's tier 2. Okay, well, I'm not sure exactly what this does, but you guys make sure to check this out, read the update, and I will have a better idea of what it is. But it sounds like PvE is just around the corner. We're going to get this arena maybe right after set 2 is what it looks like they're trying to build up for us. Moving on, we've got the 2 Turns Ahead has a new website, and it is at 2turnsahead.com, so make sure to go over there and check that out. I did listen to the podcast, and my choice on this pack is definitely Menacing Grolk, as I expect most people. And let's see, what else is on here? Yeah, I think for the most part, I probably would pick up the Righteous Paladin or the Mentalist. I'd probably go Righteous Paladin for that pack. But you know, make sure you're checking out the 2 Turns Ahead podcast. If you have an iTunes account, get out there and give them some 5-star ratings. They're looking for that so that they can get on top of all that stuff. And then we are on to the deck doctor for tonight. So tonight with the deck doctor, what we had was a deck that was submitted to the Reddit forums, and this was specifically submitted to Zygon91 on the Reddit forums, and he basically submitted this saying this deck is really amazing as long as he doesn't get shard screwed, and so he feels like the fixing in the game isn't good enough, and it's not supporting aggro. you know, he didn't actually even mention extinction problems or other stuff. So we're going to take a look at this and see what we can do with it. He's running both Gas Troll and what is it? Kindling Skarn. Both Gas Troll and Kindling Skarn, which seems somewhat counterproductive to me at first glance. But now that I've actually thrown the whole deck down and realized that it has 34 one-cost cards and 4 double 2-cost cards, I can see kind of like what the deck is trying to do more or less. So let's go ahead and delve into this. I think that he's definitely going to want Polka on here for sure. We might actually pick up some cards that are a little bit more than 1 or 2 or 3 cost even. We may pick up maybe just a single, what do you call it, Gore Feast. We might throw a single Gore Feast in here. So yeah, let's see, Ruby Lance maybe. I'm not sure if I really want to include the set 2 cards because I am making this for somebody that is trying to play the game. Burn to the Ground I didn't really like in this deck, and the reason why is because this is typically, it is removal, but it's going to be like typically like a 1 or 2 point removal for you. If you were going to use this for removal, I would prefer to use I don't even know, maybe not even Ruby Lance is really that much better. Plus it's not quick action speed. Instead of this, I think that Ruby Aura would do a lot more for this deck actually. Burn to the Ground could finish the game and close it out, so we can keep it down at 1. And I think that would be perfectly fine. Inferno is another interesting choice for this deck, but it is double threshold, so we probably won't go with that. This deck gets a lot better after it is that we get the block, the next set. When we get set 2 and we get the next shards. Now his complaint again was that he gets exhausted shards, and so let's go and look at the shards here, just to not really to confirm it. I know it pretty much works that way, but with the Shards of Fate we get 0-1, which means we don't get a shard right away on this. So even though this fixes for us, which is what he needs to happen, it's not going to allow him to play something on turn 1, and he's playing all 1-drops. So that's kind of a big problem for his deck. So let's go down here, and there's other things we could do to fix though. Other cards I think that he's kind of overlooking are, I don't know, maybe Crash the Beast. It depends on what he's trying to do with the deck. I'm still not sure that we want to keep both of those things in here. We're going to throw the Gore Feast in there though. That's definitely got to go in. He also is not running Ragefire in here, which I think is very interesting. So I think that is by itself. Or actually, I think he does have Ragefire. Maybe it's somewhere else. I think that's the alternate art. That's what I'm looking at. But if you look at these Shard of the Ancients, for instance, you gain a charge, but you don't gain your resource right away. So he's right, and like that's not really going to be that helpful unless you want to run monocolored aggro. So I think his big complaint was, I'm not able to run dual shard aggro effectively right now because there's nothing that comes into play with some sort of other drawback. Now they did talk about having some sort of shards that would come into play, like say we had Shard of Life and we already had Diamond in play, then it could come into play and it would come in and you would still give you your resource for that turn, so it wouldn't set you so far behind. So I think he's somewhat correct in that analysis, and it would be nice to see shards that maybe dealt damage to you, or obviously we're talking about going towards the magic route when we start talking about dealing damage to the face when I put a resource into play or things like that. So I don't know, maybe there's a unique thing that we can do to get that resource right away. Now we do have the charge, the dual shard that's going to give us two charges and 2 resources right away, so that's another option for this deck to pump out more dudes, because we really only, especially if you pulled it down to like 1. Yeah, we got this Crackling Vortex, which is going to give you 2 charges and a resource right away, but it looks like it's going to be a rare card, this guy. So yeah, that's actually our first rare resource if that is true, which would be kind of surprising to me. That's probably why I didn't see it in draft when I was at the convention at all. Alright, so I don't think we're going to put set 2 cards in here, just because I'm trying to create this for someone that is trying to play the deck. I definitely wanted that. I think also I'm going to want charge bots in here. I think we're going to go more Ruby side of things with this, so let's go ahead and get the charge bot. I think that's also another great body that can go in here that we actually might use to replace what's his name, the Gas Troll. We may or may not try to pull wild completely out of this. Now, in the HexTCGPro tournament last weekend, I did play against a mono wild aggro deck that ran 18 resources and all 1 and 2 drops, and it was actually pretty strong. So I really actually did like that quite a bit. Other cards we could run in here is Sapper's Charge. Maybe this might go on the reserves more than on the main deck. Thing that's nice about Sapper's Charge is it doesn't matter what resource we draw, we can still use it as removal. The problem is that it sits on the table. Other cards we could use is maybe a Bottle Vitae, but this isn't really what we want to be doing. Bottle doesn't really advance our board state. We really want to play a body on turn 1 and then start swinging on turn 2. We really want to be swinging on turn 2 with this deck quite often. Arena Regular, that's a set 2 card. I'm running into set 2 cards now because I put in Charge. Yeah, so let's kind of look through, see if there's anything else we can throw in this deck to maybe try to smooth it out a little bit more. Usually when I'm playing Gas Troll, a lot of times I only want to play the 4 Gas Troll and maybe like 2 to 4 other wild cards, if any more at all. Like this feels like we should be splashing wild, and that would actually make it more advantageous to run like Shards of Fate, maybe as a 2 of, because we do understand that it is a problem for the deck to run Shards of Fate. Ruby Pyromancer's probably not going to make it in here because it has nothing to inspire. He's already got the Savage Raider, Tatalka, Sword Trainer, Sniper. Not really seeing a lot to keep things into that low range, you know. Pack Raptor is another interesting choice for this deck. So the deck I played against played Pack Raptor, Verdant Wildeboar, and it played the card that shuffles in, Wild Growth, I believe. Shuffles back in, so all these things compete with each other for deck space. But the interesting thing about what he was doing was he was making it less chance that he would draw a resource. And when you only run your whole deck on 2 resources anyways, and then playing that third one basically makes it so all of your Dandelion sprites have Spell Shield, that's actually pretty good. So I'm not going to copy that deck at all. You know, I'm trying to go more into the Ruby zone, but just so you guys know, that deck is out there and it is pretty decent. So I would go ahead and check that out also if you want to go into more of a wild route on what you're going to do there. Wild Growth, probably not. See, the other thing is when you're playing Gas Troll, it's just so counterproductive because it used to be really good when we could play Ruby Shards and it pumped it. Like Gas Troll was bonkers, but after they fixed that and it doesn't do that anymore, you know, whenever I play another wild card and I draw that card and I have Gas Troll in play, that wild card no longer buffs him, which really feels bad. It doesn't have to be. It's not really that bad. It's not the end of the world, but it doesn't. It's really not the greatest. Other card we could run in here, maybe a Briar Legion. I like Briar Legion over playing Pack Raptor in here because we're not typically going to pump things, and Briar Legion gets big at the end of the game. So we'll think about it. We'll think about Briar Legion. That does push our curve up quite a bit by playing that, so we'll think about that. We probably don't want to have to play Adaptable Infusion Device. It doesn't really do enough for us at the beginning of the game. It just fixes for us, and that's more for like a control deck where it can afford to push into the end of the game. So I'm really not seeing Infusion Device in here. Command Tower is a maybe, like as a 2 of in here, but it's probably not really going to do it for us. This is, again, Command Tower is not one of these that says you need to play lots of tokens for me to be good. Actually, you know, we'll probably just pull that right away. That doesn't really make too much sense to me. Another card I really liked in here, though, was Furious Taskmaster. I'm surprised he wasn't playing this, because it gives those orcs speed, so they can come into play and attack right away, which could be very, very important as he's trying to push that damage through, especially if he top decks something and he needs to get as many bodies into the red zone as possible. Emberspire Witch is another, I think, gimme card that should be in here, either main deck or at least in the reserves. He didn't really give us a reserves pile, so I'm kind of going off some things. Again, we're pushing the curve up by playing these cards, but I don't think it's going to be too much of a problem. Sensei is another one you could play in here, but again, I don't like its interaction with Gas Troll. So we're going to try to keep the Gas Troll in by playing by reducing the amount of wild cards. Suppressive Fire isn't too bad. I think as a 2 of it should be fine, or maybe even just a 1 of. Let's see, I'm not really seeing too much else. The Wild Root Dancer doesn't work for this deck at all, really, because obviously it's very removable. We've already, you know, and we just aren't running a ton of resources. And if we don't have, we should have bodies for it to buff, but we just don't have the resources to use its ability so it's not going to trigger enough to make it worth it for us. Veteran Gladiator is another classic that a lot of people are using in Ruby, so I would say at least a 2 of on this card if we're going to play it, maybe even up to a 4 of. It's just a very strong finisher that's going to get rid of blockers. Does very similar things to other stuff. You run into trouble when you run your Veteran Gladiator and they have enough blockers to deal with it, but it should be fine before then. Arena Brawler is another obvious choice here for this deck especially, and maybe Bombsmith. Again, we're pushing the curve up. We aren't really playing a lot of 1-drops when we make a lot of these choices, but I think overall we can make these choices and still have turn 1 plays and turn 2 plays, and our turn 2 plays will be nice and strong, and our turn 3 plays should hopefully get us to a board state where it'll either force a sweep by our opponent or it'll just we can actually sit on those cards if we have to, if we expect a sweep. We're basically kind of playing a mono Ruby deck. Insight Fury, I'm not sure why I just clicked that up. We don't want that. But the Ruby Aura is, I would say at least a 1 of. I would throw maybe 2 of these on the reserves. But in the main deck, Ruby Aura seems really good. Royal Falconeer is another one we could maybe like 1 of at the top of the curve, but we aren't really playing the buffs for it, so maybe not. Maybe that's really just not this deck. Still a really solid card. I mean, everyone knows that Falconeer is just bonkers when you're playing Gore Feast, but that's not really our deck. Our deck doesn't really revolve around getting to a place where we can actually play our Falconeer. We want to clear out early threats and just push damage every turn, play early threats. So if we draw, let's say that we played 2 Falconeers, if we draw those in our opening hand, it really puts us in an awkward situation. We're trying to avoid that. When you're playing a deck like this, it's all math. Cerebral Fulmination is another one we could think about maybe 1-ofing to extend in at the end in our end steps, because we're trying to get that extra damage in. Again, we're trying to leave the gas troll in best as we can. Crimson Clarity is probably not necessary for this deck because we have nothing to ramp into. Demolition is the one we can throw in the reserves though, because let's say we're running into those control decks. If we can demolish some of that early stuff, then that could be a big deal. Reginald we've seen get played on a lot of reserves. I do like him on the reserves a lot, especially in this deck, because if you get him through, your opponent, especially that opponent that's drawing lots of cards, it could be a really big problem for them. They may not draw as many cards, so we're going to go and throw him on the reserves just as a counterman to people that draw lots of cards, basically, that don't usually have a lot of early stuff. In this deck, you might as well just throw the Baby Yeti in there. You really do. I hate to say it, but the Baby Yeti actually kind of makes this deck. And after set 2, the Baby Yeti gets better because there's a troop that says whenever you play a 1/1, your 1/1s get +1/+1 whenever they get played, whenever they come into play permanently. So that seems pretty good. Fiendish Cabalist, probably not going to really make this, but Gem-Crazed Berserker might. I mean, we can throw haste on this guy, or we could throw Swift Strike, or we could throw evasion on this guy. It really depends. I mean, we'd probably throw some sort of evasion on him. So we can throw, there's a gem that says basically you have to match the same shard type as him, and it doesn't, the gems aren't coming up for me. But basically, he can only be blocked by other Ruby troops if we put that gem on him. So we might actually start throwing that on him, or the basically Swift. Not Swift Strike, but basically it's basically speed. Sorry, not haste. Speed is the keyword that I was looking for there. Next is we got Impudlums. That's an obvious, more of a reserves card. It's another 3 cost, so it's not too bad. It's not really going to break the bank. Shadowblade Broker, Ruby Enchantress. None of this stuff is really hitting it for me. War Mechanist, not really, because we just aren't running enough. What do you call them? Artifacts to really make this guy worth it. If we maybe were more heavy, if there were a lot of 1-drop artifact troops, maybe, I mean, maybe we can think about this guy at least, but he's probably going to not make the cut. Dandelion Sprite is one that goes into the wild version of this deck. He was also playing Cottontail Ronin and Crash of Beasts. I mean, the mono wild aggro that he was playing was pretty solid, if I may say so. It was also playing Howling Brave. I don't think we need Howling Brave for this deck at all. We're really not ramping in anything. Nature's Reigns, though, can go on our side, our reserves for to deal with like Soul Marble. That seems like a solid 3 of in this deck. Turbulence is another card we probably don't need, but we'll probably just put like 1 on the reserves just to deal with maybe like, or maybe 2 to deal with like Vampire King or something. Plan C is another one we could run in this deck because usually by the time it is that we can play a Plan C, our game should hopefully be over anyways. So it doesn't matter if we dump all of our resources. Basically, if you didn't know, Plan C basically gives us 3/3 war bots for every 2 resources. Now this is probably not going to make the cut. It's not that great because we aren't ramping, because we need it's for every 2 resources. So we get 1 war bot for 2 resources, and we get 2 war bots for 4. So chances are this actually isn't going to do very much for us. So actually, you know what, we will probably not use that guy. Minotaur Mercenary. This troop enters play, choose a random pro suit. This one is so it's I don't know, it just seems really bad. Gets permanent +2 or opposing champion gains control of it. I mean, that's just too much to bear. I don't think that we can afford that. Another thing he main decked was Oaken Ceremony, and I think that this kind of goes against what the deck is trying to do. Oaken Ceremony is there to fish out either specific troops that you want to play early, like those big bombs when you're trying to ramp, or you know, maybe that toolbox thing that's going to say no to something. But in this deck, we're just trying to aggro, and I understand it's going to help you get to more troops, but at the same time, those 2 Oaken Ceremony should just be bodies. It's not really going to do a lot for this deck, so we're going to go and pull those right away. I don't really see those being in here. Additionally, it's clunky with our gas troll, so we really are not going to want to have that in here. Pheromones is actually another one we could think about in here, because we could throw this on like a 1/1, and that way it is removal if we need it to be, but for the most part it's going to push through the remaining damage that we need it to. So it's a thought. I mean, we can think about maybe playing a 1 of Pheromones. Incantation of Savagery is another one. We're playing a ton of troops in this deck, so this is another one that actually seems on the surface to be actually not that bad in this deck. We aren't playing a lot of what do you call them, a lot of tokens, so it may be a little bit tough to be there, but this deck is trying to dump its hand out. Additionally, Incantation of Savagery gives us some recovery after it is our opponent plays Extinction, because we can just hold off on troops and wait for the Extinction and then play our troops and get a, I believe it's a 6/3 with Crush. That, let's actually just look at it. Let's look at this Feral Beast. But the big thing is it has a Spell Shield. Okay, so it doesn't have Crush, but it is a 6/3. So it is very blockable by a lot of things that are in like Blood Diamond control. You know, it's going to trade with a lot of things, or they'll just, you know, not care about it maybe. But, you know, at least it gives us some recovery after that sweep. And when it comes into play, it can swing right away, and it's going to transform all of these guys. So actually, I really like Feral Beast, Incantation of Savagery turning into Feral Beast in this deck. I think that that's pretty decent. We do have to be careful how many Crushing Blows we use. I need to check to make sure he's got Ragefire in here. Other than that, I think we're about ready to go to the deck and take a look to see what we've got to work with. Again, this deck gets a lot better after it is that the block rotates, but you would probably push it into a more mono shard focused deck to try to do what we're doing. So let's go ahead and just go right back up. Okay, do we put 2 Shards of Fate in here? I can't remember now. I'm gonna have to type it in. Shards of Fate. Shards of Fate. Shards of Fate. Okay, so we're gonna throw 2 of these in here just for the fixing, and I think that that's not too much to ask. We're 109 cards right now, which is pretty high. We're actually going to take our curve all the way down to like 21 right off the bat. Actually, we'll probably go with the Ruby higher. So we've got 2 Shards of Fate and 10 Ruby Shards and 9 Wild Shards. We're actually, our curve is scaling down, going down. So we're actually going to get rid of a lot of the wild stuff right off the bat. So the Wild Growth, we're going to keep 1 of these for now. Because anything that basically the rule here is going to be if it can trigger our Kindling Skarn, then we'll keep it. But other than that, like, we're probably not going to keep it. So like even these Briar Legions are probably going to go. Verdant Wildeboar is going to get in the way of us drawing Ruby cards to buff our what do you call it? Our Gas Troll as well. So this is going to be one of those things where, like, yeah, if you get the Gas Troll the first turn, that's great, but if not, then, you know, You know, is it worth it to play the deck? You're gonna have to make that decision if you take a look at this deck. We're already down to 99 cards. We're getting there. We're gonna chip away at this. Okay, so let's take the Veteran Gladiators down there. If we don't play a playset of Briar Legion, we probably won't play them. I don't think we're going to play them. This is another one you could try out in here, though. I don't see this as being a negative thing, especially after you play your second or third one. The third one especially. I mean, that's a pretty big body that has to be dealt with. And it kind of has sweep recovery, you know, because if you play your third one, that's a 6/6 that your opponent will have to at least murder to deal with. Emberspire Witch, I think, really needs to be in here. Furious Taskmaster, maybe as a 2 of, I think. We can do that. Burnt to the Ground, I'm really questioning being in here. I do understand it's an end game type of card, so I think we can keep it. Arena Brawler is fine, I think. Baby Yeti will probably end up pulling. Machinist, we could probably easily pull Machinist here. A lot of times what I do is I just try to load up everything into the deck and then pull it back. Just kind of rein it in. So the pheromones, I think we're going to move to the reserves for now. A lot of times, if you're thinking about putting a card but it just doesn't make the cut, throw it on your reserves. I mean, you can always throw a 1 of and then just see how you feel about it when you're playing the tournament, and that way it can kind of, you know, that's how you can start main decking things later on. Crushing Blow, I really feel strongly needs to be a 2 of. Crushing Blow is an amazing card, and it's nice because it doesn't clog up our deck. It does go to our graveyard. But at the same time, with no bodies, if you draw a handful of Crushing Blow, that could be a dead hand for you. If you draw a handful of Crushing Blow and 3 resources, that's a dead hand. So I'd rather draw just 2 maximum in my opening hand. And in fact, Crushing Blow is miles better than Wild Growth, so we can actually get rid of our Wild Growth. And the reason being, again, if we drew Wild Growth plus 2 Crushing Blow, that's not great. And I don't think that reducing Crushing Blow down to 1 and 1 Wild Growth is really worth it. With the Kindling Skarn, though, we do have to make sure that we have enough actions, though, to make him worth it too. So that's where it is that the dichotomy between the Gas Troll and the Kindling Skarn is just maybe just a little bit too clunky. We do have Ruby Aura as a pretty good action to use, but other things like this constant Cerebral Fulmination's not going to help our Kindling Skarn either. So I guess that's one thing in favor of us having at least one action in the deck that we can play over and over again, which should be Ragefire. And I'm actually not seeing Ragefire in here, so that actually needs to be our action that gets played over and over and over again. So let's go ahead and get the Ragefire. I have about 3 minutes to finish this deck out to make it within time, so we'll see if I can do it. This is all I the Tiger, Heart of the Cards, I don't know. So yeah, the Ragefire is really good, and this Ragefire will replace Burn to the Ground easily, very, very easily. I still like Chargebot in here because it gets us our thing. That's still decent. Of course, it doesn't work that great with Orc Gladiator, so yeah. That guy's good. Let's get rid of the Bombsmith here, or we'll just move it to the reserves. I'll figure out the reserves later, so you guys don't worry too much about the reserves during the show. That when I finally post the deck, I will figure that out later. But we're trying to get to the meat of this deck, or what it's trying to do. So we can probably get rid of the Baby Yeti. It's an early drop, but we really want to be dropping Kindling Skarn or our Gas Troll on turn 1. That is our turn 1 drop. So we're down to 79 cards now. So that's pretty good. Taskmaster. I like the Emberspire Witch being in here, especially with the removal that you have available. Suppressive Fire. Let's take Suppressive Fire down to 1. It would be nice if there was some sort of an action that gave me a body in Ruby. That would really, really, really help out Kindling Skarn. If we could have something like that in the deck, that would be really good. Let's go ahead and take Incantation of Savagery out of the deck. I do really like this card, but again, it's a constant. It doesn't work with Kindling Skarn, so it's not going to make the cut here. Cerebral Fulmination, also not going to make the cut here. Just because it's going to extend us, and hopefully we'll draw those Ragefires, but that, you know, we probably would have rather drawn a body or a burn spell or something else at that point in time in the game. The Sappers charges are a little bit slow, and we are already in Ruby, so I think we can go ahead and get rid of those we're ending up with a very similar deck to what he already had. Ragefire, if you're in Ruby, you pretty much need to invest in some Ragefire. I know that this is probably the biggest money card in this deck, and he didn't post any, maybe because he doesn't have any. So, yeah. Yeah, why Sapper's Charge when you have Burn and Bombsmith? Mostly because we're in 2 different shards, and we're playing a very, very low curve on this deck. Very low. That was the main reason, main purpose for those. I still like Gore Feast in here. I think we can take down our Gem-Crazed Berserkers. Again, I would personally throw on Gem-Crazed Berserker, I would throw it has to be blocked by Ruby troops, so that way it gives us evasion in this type of deck, because you have your Taskmaster in here, and hopefully, if you keep your fingers crossed, you'll have Taskmaster out and you'll follow it up with Gem-Crazed Berserker. I mean, that's obviously a wonderland that I'm living in right now, but you know, I'm okay with that. The charge bot, I think we can take down to 2, because for the most part, in turns 1 and 2, we want to play our big money cards, which are either the Gas Troll or the Kindling Skarn. Let's see, what else? We might actually even be able to take our shards down. We're at 21 shards, I said, right? 10, 19, and 2 is 21 shards. We still have a very, very low curve, so we may actually even be able to take it down. We do have a lot of 2-drops. We might be get rid of another 2-drop somewhere. Probably the Emberspire Witch seems the most clunky, so let's go ahead and take those down to 2. That seems like a pretty good choice there. Let's see, what else can we do here to fix this? I'm kind of getting to where it is that I feel like feel pretty good about the deck. Let's take the Gem-Crazed Berserker down, because again, we're trying to have that really low curve on here, and that reduces our 3-drops down pretty low. We're down to 62 cards now. We might just get rid of these charge bots, but I like having them because they're just easy to play. They get us to our charge power a little bit faster. It's another body. Suppressive Fire. I'm not sure that we have enough actions to play Kindling Skarn in this deck. That's the other problem I'm running into here, is I'm looking over the deck. I don't think that I can cut another action. Furious Taskmaster, maybe take that down to 1, and maybe just take Emberspire Witch down to 1. Yeah, so I think this will give him maybe a little bit more extension. I think the biggest thing he really needs in here, you know, he doesn't have to take any of my advice, but please, if you can get Ragefire, you really need Ragefire. Right now, it looks like, according to this the HexTCG browser, it's hovering around $2, which is about the price of a pack of cards, which is pretty reasonable for one of the best escalation cards that's available to us. So, guys, stick around because we're going to do a sleeves, and that's pretty much the deck right now. I would have to, again, this is a deck you would definitely have to play. You definitely need to make sure it is that it's doing what you need it to do, and to see if these are what you want to do. Again, if anything, you're probably going to make a decision, either Gas Troll or Kindling Skarn, but not both in this deck. So we'll just kind of go over what we talked about tonight. So tonight on Deck Building with the Squire, and I'm really thankful for everybody that came out tonight. We talked with Sithos about some of his experiences, and so he's Sithos pretty much all over the internet. I think it's Sithos. He came on last night. He's got his hot date tonight, so you guys, I guess, respect for him. And other than that, we also went over a bunch of different news items with the lawsuit that we talked about. We talked about the what else did we talk about? We talked about some of the news that just dropped. It looks like Arena is just around the corner for us with PvE, possibly with some of the video that they showed us. And we talked about the new 2 Turns Ahead article, and then we also talked about some of the analysis that had been done by who was that? That was one of our HexTCGPro. Anyways, if you go to the HexTCGPro website, you can see all the analysis over the 33-person tournament that we did last weekend for the finals for that HexTCGPro, I believe it's Challenge Series finals. Other than that, until next time, this is Aaron Squire signing off, saying God bless you and your families, and try not to rage too much out there.